Hello everyone and welcome to the continuation of the Riga Interzonal tournament of 1979. We've seen Tal's victory in round 1. It was a great one, but now he faces a deadly opponent. It is Soviet Grandmaster Lev Polugaevsky, who is not only one of the strongest players in the world, but also has a pretty good score against Tal. Throughout their life, they played 32 games. Tal only won 2 of them. 8 went to Polugaevsky and the 22 were drawn. And the previous game they played some 20 years ago was the one that Tal won. So the last time Tal actually defeated Polugaevsky was in 1959, and this is now 1979. But like I said, this is Tal's tournament, so let's see what happened in this one. And probably the reason why Polugaevsky had such a great score against Tal is because he understood how to play against Tal. Some of you might not know this, but from 1950 to 1953, Polugaevsky was training with none other than the great Rashid Nejmedinov, and 3 years fending off Nejmedinov's attacks will prepare you for anything coming your way, even a great attacker like Tal. So let's see what happened in this one. We have knight to f3 by Polugaevsky, and Tal goes for pawn to c5, sort of a Sicilian invitation. If white plays e4, then we just play the Sicilian. But Lev plays c4. He transposes into the English opening. Knight to f6, we have knight to c3, and now pawn to d5. Striking in the center, c captures, knight captures, and now pawn to e4. We have knight to b4 by Tal, now going for that d3 square, and just bishop to c4. He's not worried about knight to d3 check. It's in fact, it's the top move that you can play in the position, but Tal actually goes for bishop to e6. It's a very tricky line that invites bishop captures on e6, which will mess up your pawn structure, but you will get to place a knight on d3 unopposed. So let's see what happens. Bishop captures on e6. Lev accepts Tal's challenge. Knight to d3 check, king to f1, and now f captures on e6. We have knight to g5 now. He goes after the e6 pawn as well. Queen to b6. Tal defends while developing his queen. And also, you really have to worry about c4. Once c4 lands, not only is your knight on d3 defended, but also Tal will be threatening checkmate on f2, which is pretty crazy. It's only move 9. And okay, queen to e2, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. Tal plays c4. Now the knight is defended, and also that queen cannot leave just anywhere. She needs to defend the f2 pawn. b3, of course, he wants to challenge the c4 pawn to get rid of the knight, and here Tal plays h6. We have knight back to f3, and now, if you're wondering about queen to h5 check, there's really no reason to play that. Just king to d7, and now you have to worry about your knight hanging and also checkmate on f2. So yes, okay, you can play knight to h3. This kind of takes care of both threats, but still, it's a very shaky position for white. So instead, knight back to f3 by Lev, and now comes knight to c6. Tal figures he's just going to give up one more pawn on c4, and he's going to play knight to c6 and castles, and then the rook will come to d8 to defend the knight, and the knight can stay there. So it's a very, very nice trade-off. B captures on c4. We have queenside castles by Tal, and now pawn to g3. And this is pretty much the first suboptimal move from Lev, but the position is incredibly complicated. Now, the way you want to play this is either by playing knight to d5, which is a weird move to play, and also knight to e1. Knight to e1. Those are your moves that you want to play. I'm just going to quickly show you what happens. Now you disconnect the rook from the knight, and you are threatening queen captures on d3. But still, after e captures, queen captures on d3, and knight b4 attacking the queen. It's not easy to play this. Let's say queen to e3, you're going to play queen to c7, now knight to c2 is coming. It's a very, very difficult position to play, but of course you could play it. The other one is knight to e1. Let's just get rid of the knight from d3. Then knight captures on e1. Now a nice Zwischenzug, rook to b1, attacking Tal's queen, queen to a5, and only now king captures on e1. Let's say knight to d4 attacks the queen, and now queen to d1. And still your king is on e1. You will have to spend a few more moves to castle artificially, but you can play this. However, after g3, here Polugaevsky really wants everything. He captured some material. He wants to play king to g2 and then bring the rook into the game. But I mean, that's just too much. Tal now plays g5. We have king to g2 and now queen to c5 by Tal. Going after the c4 pawn, we have rook to b1 and now bishop to g7. Just nicely developing pieces. We have knight to b5 and now comes queen captures on c4, giving up the c4 pawn with the idea that now the queen can come to e3 and you can put pressure along this diagonal, but it doesn't work. Queen captures on c4 by Tal. We have queen to e3, and now rook h to f8, putting pressure on that f file. And here, how do you continue this? In the game, rook to f1 was played, kind of trying to add a defender to the f2 pawn. The problem is if you go for knight captures on a7 check, which of course you can, this is what happens. Knight captures, queen captures on a7, and now queen captures on e4. And how do you defend the knight on f3? You have to bring the queen back, queen to e3, and now just queen d5. You keep the pressure here. Of course, you're not going to trade. And now g4 is coming. And the only way to stop any severe material loss is h3, but then just h5, preparing g4, and now you have to play rook to b3. It's your only option. g4, h captures, rook captures on d3, and now g captures on f3 comes with check. That's kind of the problem. Queen captures, and now queen captures on d3. And after all is said and done, captures, Tal will be up a full rook. So that's why it doesn't work. Even though it does look like it should work, kind of bust open the black queen side, but not really. So rook to f1 was played by Polugaevsky, and now pawn to g4 by Tal. We have knight to h4, and now there are many good moves here. Like you could even consider a nice pawn grab with queen captures on a2, and some of you, I'm sure, would go for that if you enjoy grabbing material, but not Tal. Tal plays knight captures on f2, and this now position is so complicated, not only because it's complicated, but because there's no way out. The position is completely winning for Tal, although it does seem like you could maybe defend. So just to give you an example of what happens after rook captures on f2, the idea is rook captures on f2 check, king captures. If you capture with the queen, then you allow queen captures on e4 check, nicely connects with the rook on b1. So you're gonna have to play king captures, now rook to f8 with check, king to g2, and now let's say queen to f1 with checkmate. So there's really not much point in capturing this knight. So after knight captures on f2, Polugaevsky tried knight to g6, but now, although it's a very nice move, there is a winning way for Tal, but there's only one way to win this. So feel free to pause the video and figure out the best way to do this while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible maneuver. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to d3. This is the only way to do it. There are other good moves, but this is just absolutely crushing. And the reason for that is that the only two options that Polugaevsky really has don't really work. And we're just gonna go through some of them. Like what happens if knight captures on e7? Is that an idea? Kind of getting this knight out of the way, maybe putting pressure on a7. The problem is if you go for this, just king to d7. Tal will not capture. Tal will play king to d7, and now let's say knight a3, you attack the queen. Queen to a6 just keeps the tension. The white queen is still hanging, and once you play queen c5, now comes rook d to f3, which is the original idea behind rook to d3, doubling up on the f file. And now after queen b5, yes, you can trade queens, but let's say captures and captures. Now comes knight to d3, and here you resign. The knight on e7 is hanging, and also the rook on f1 is hanging. If you first capture, then you can capture with the pawn with check, then pick up the knight. So white loses heavy material here. Another reason why it's completely lost is that if you go queen to e1, you just want to move the queen. Here comes rook d to f3 again, and now after knight to a3, hoping that a rook captures so you can capture the knight on f2, you're going to play queen to a4. And now what do? It's pretty bad. If knight captures on f8, then again knight to d3 attacks the queen and also puts pressure on the rook here. If queen e2, then knight to d4 attacks the queen once again, and once the queen moves and offers a trade, now you trade queen captures, rook captures, and rook to f2 check, king wherever, let's say king to h1, and now knight to f3 with imminent checkmate on the next move. Rook captures on h2 is unstoppable. So that's what would happen if you went queen to e1. And really, aside from those two options, there really isn't anything. Polugaevsky tried knight to a3, sort of a different move order, but still, queen to a4 by Tal, Now queen to e1, and Tal just plays rook d to f3, similar to the line that we've shown. Knight captures on f8, he even grabs the rook, but now knight to d3, like we've shown, queen to d1, and now Tal even captures on e4. Queen captures on e4, now threatening very nasty discoveries. So a capture on f3 is a must. Rook captures, we have pawn captures with check, king to f1, and now queen to f5. Queen to g4 also was playable. You want to play queen to h3 with check. So king to g1, and now comes bishop to d4 with check, and he was in this position on move 28 that Lev Polugaevsky resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So a true tactical masterpiece by Tal, winning his second game in a row in the Riga Interzonal tournament of 1979. So here you resign because after king h1, you can do anything. You can play knight checks, you can play pawn to f2, but you don't even have to take the queen. It's much cooler if you don't. Let's say king g1, knight to e4 check, king h1, knight captures on g3 with check, and we reach the position from the thumbnail with a nice checkmate. You can play queen f3, h3 checkmate, you can play queen to h5 checkmate. I prefer queen to h5, so that's the one we're gonna show. So yeah, very nicely done by Tal, and like I said, Polugaevsky had a brilliant score against Tal, and as this was 1979, they were playing to qualify for the candidates tournament. Both Tal and Polugaevsky qualified for the candidates tournament, and in the quarterfinals of the candidates matches, Polugaevsky eliminated Tal without Tal winning a single game. Final score was something like 5.5 to 2.5, like three wins for Polugaevsky, 0 wins for Tal, and 5 draws. So pretty amazing result, and it's what stopped Tal on his next World Chess Championship run, basically. And Polugaevsky also had great chances, but he lost a very tough match in the semifinals to Viktor Korchnoi, Viktor the Terrible, and it was a very close matchup. Let me just check. I don't want to trick you guys. Do I have the results somewhere? I had them somewhere. I think I don't anymore. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have them here, but I think it was like something like six and a half to 7.5. Like Victor won by 1 point margin. But yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tal's second and last victory against the great Lev Polugaevsky. Hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank BB Chess, London System, Kevin Alimadi, Marco Steele, and Stefan Cornell for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.